Board Spoils, where we spoil everything for you, including how-to videos, overviews, spoilers, strategies, anything. We'll go into depth. For this video is the spoils. This is our signature video for Dominion. We'll show you each card, whether that be a treasure card, a victory card, or even an action card. All the cards in the game. We'll show you each card and we'll explain each card and what each card does and if there's any strategies involved with these cards. So this is how we're going to lay it all out for you. Basically, we're going to start with the least expensive card and we're going to work our way up all the way up to the most expensive card, at least for the action cards. So our first card is the Cellar. This gives you one action, and you may discard any cards you don't want and gain as many cards that you discarded. For example, you may use this card to discard 4 cards that are bad in your hand, like a curse or a victory card, and gain another 4 cards into your hand. We're going to go with pros and cons of each card. So let me show you the pros of this card. I call this card the just in case card. If you have many throwaway cards, like curses and victories, then you don't have to have a bad hand. And it's cheap. So if you only want 2 coppers on the table, you can purchase it. It's pretty inexpensive. The cons of this card: sellers basically give you 4 cards in your hand instead of 5, because it really doesn't do much except it gives you a better hand just in case. The next card is the Chapel card, cost 2. The pros of this card is trashing unwanted cards like curses or low cost cards, or if you have too many cards of one card in your deck. I think I said the word cards too many times in that sentence, and I apologize. But the cons of this card: after trashing your cards that you need to trash, this basically floats around in your deck, which you can't get rid of. So be careful not to buy more than 2 of these. The next card is Moat. Moat gives you +2 cards when you put it down. Now, let's say you have it in your hand. If someone attacks you, like a militia, which we'll get into later in this video, the militia will say, hey, any player that has a specific amount of cards, you need to go down to 3 cards. If you have this Moat, this is the ultimate defense card. You can just say, hey, I have a Moat, I will not do this attack, and I will defend my whole dominion. So, the pros of the Moat: this card not only gives you the +2 cards, and it deflects all your attacks, and it has the same cost as a silver, but uses your action. The cons of this card: no real cons to the card unless you have way too many of them and you're messing up your deck with just Moats. The Chancellor. This gives you +2 during your turn, and you may immediately shuffle your deck, so you don't have to wait until you deplete your deck to shuffle in your discard pile. The pro of this card is for those who have bought many expensive cards altogether, or treasure cards, during the game and need a little boost to get them sooner. The cons: this card is not a real game changer in the long run. All it really does is that it adds a tiny boost in your turns. Is the Village. The Village gives you +1 card, +2 actions, so it boosts your actions more than anything. Playing multiples of this card will add another action you can do. For example, if you play 2 villages in a row, you may play an additional 3 other actions in your hand. And having a +1 card as well, you may pull another action card to play. The cons: I see a lot of players buy this card near the beginning of the game, but all it does without other action cards in your deck is that it acts as just a filler, and you're wasting the card or wasting your turn, and it could be something else. But unless you have another action card to go with this, that's when it becomes valuable. We've got the Woodcutter. This gives you an extra buy and also +2 treasures during your turn. that's pretty much the pro right there. Self-explanatory. The cons, there's no real cons. The only thing that it may be a con is that it does use up an action. So you better have something like a village right before. And then you can play this one and play something else if you want to. The workshop. Pros is that you can gain a card up to 4. Costing up to 4 at least. This basically just allows you, without another buy, you can basically get 2 cards in your turn. One that costs 4 and whatever treasures that you have left. The cons of this card is that workshop tends to be better at the beginning of the game, but not towards the end, because the cards that you want are higher in cost, usually. The next card is the Bureaucrats. This one is called the Slow Down Get Rich card. This attacks other players and also benefits you. You gain a silver and also put it in your deck. Not in your discard pile, just so you know. You basically have a silver next turn. That's what you're basically doing. Also, other players have to place a victory card on the top of their decks if they have one in their hand, initially slowing their turn or their next turn. The cons of this card, towards the end of the game, you tend not to use them because you want gold treasures instead. The Feast. You may trash this card one time only, but you gain a card that's basically 1 cost more than it for 5. So yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory if you want to do it that way. It's kind of difficult to play with this card. You gotta know what you're doing, a little bit at least. The cons of this card is fairly expensive compared to getting a 5 card. You only get to use this once, pull it from your deck, and you have to trash it. It's fairly slow, but if you pair multiples with these with Village, which we learned before, then you can get tons of great cards pretty quickly. Gardens. This is what I call the sneaky victory card. This is the only card that is not an action card. It basically states that the more cards you have, the more victory points you will receive at the end of the game. You can also hoard a bunch of these cards. For example, if you have all 10 of these cards at the end of your game and you have 30 cards in your hand, then you receive an additional 30 points, which is a lot. The cons of these cards do nothing during your turn. That's the problem with these. So they are only worth something at the end of the game. I would suggest waiting to buy these until you have a new or better flowy deck. The Militia. I call this card the Major Slowdown card. This hurts all players to put down 2 cards of their choice in the discard pile, and you get +2 treasures as well. If you want to be a pain in the ass, then get a bunch of these. The cons, no real con except it only has +2 treasures and uses one of your actions. So if you have multiple of these, it could slow yourself down if you have too many of them and not enough plus action cards. It's kind of one of my favorites. It's called the Moneylender. This allows you to get rid of your unwanted coppers and exchanges them to basically become temporary gold cards. You can use this card along with other treasures on your turn to buy cards that wouldn't normally would at the beginning of the game if you choose to. So it's best to have this card right at the beginning so you can get rid of those coppers, make some money, buy better cards, so you don't have to worry about a horrible deck. So the cons of this card, once your coppers are all gone in your deck, this card is worthless. Get rid of it or buy more coppers. So you can kind of feed it if you buy more coppers during the game.